So hello everyone, welcome back to Oliveboard's Agri Coaching. As we all know, yesterday we saw our first chapter of Basics of Agriculture, Present Scenario in Agriculture, as well as Agricultural Practices in India, and that also which was in bilingual medium. And today we are going to see the same class, but we are going to see it completely in English. So as I already told you, for your upcoming AFO examination, we are bringing you all the static content possible which is according to the syllabus of AFO examination. So we are starting our first primary sessions with the basic chapters like present scenario of agriculture in the country and agricultural practices in India, different terms of agriculture, and all these things which we are going to cover lesson by lesson, lecture by lecture. What you have to do is nothing but you just have to show your commitment, and your commitment is just one click away. You just have to subscribe to our channel and you can expect a very good content which is also generic as well as static in nature for your upcoming AFO examination. Let's begin with our topic today, that is agricultural practices. We all know that Indian agricultural system is very unique, and we are having different unique and sustainable agriculture and farming practices which are carried out in the country. So today we are starting with some basic methods, techniques which are carried out in Indian farming system or Indian agriculture, and that we call as agricultural practices. When I talk to you about agricultural practices, there would be series of activities which are mentioned as agricultural practices. But before understanding them, we should know that what do basically these agricultural practices mean. So if we overall look at India as an agrarian community or as an agrarian country, from north to south, from east to west, we will be having different types of crops which are grown. We will be having different seasons in which different crops are grown in different way. And this is how unique Indian agricultural system is. But importantly, if you try to look at it, in spite having different climate, having different cropping system, having different crops to be grown, still there are certain general activities, there are certain methods, techniques and steps which are followed in Indian agricultural system, which are basic agricultural practices which we have to carry step by step, from sowing of the seed to growing of the crop, to harvesting it and then taking it to market and selling it. All these activities are nothing but your agricultural practices. If you look at it, what does agricultural practices mean? So if we are trying to define agricultural practices, let me put it into the words cultivation of crops. Cultivation of crops is nothing but growing the crops. So when we are cultivating the crops, when we are growing the crops, and which involves some general activities, general methods, certain practices, certain techniques, certain procedures, and certain even step-by-step actions. All these things can be considered, as your agricultural practices. So cultivation of crops which involves general activities which are done by farmer over a period of time. So maybe you can assume that there is a particular farmer who is doing his agricultural farming during monsoon season, and all the crops which he has planted, whatever the cropping choices are, maybe rice, maybe wheat, maybe maize, these are your kharif crops, right? Then comes our next season, that is your rabi crops, where crops are grown in winter season. And then comes our summer season, the crops which are grown, which are called as JAIIB crops, and that is JAIIB season. So three types of crops. So whenever during each of these seasonal cropping cycle or agricultural cycle, if a farmer is carrying his cultivation of crops, his growth of crops, and following certain activities in his unit piece of land in the sense, whatever the total acreage of land he is having, maybe 10 hectare, maybe 5 hectare. So whatever piece of land he is having, whatever unit piece of land he is having, On that, over a period of time, it may be 1 year, it may be seasonal. If he is carrying out certain general activities which are unique for Kharif crops, unique for Rabi crops, unique for Zaid crops, then such activities, such methods, such techniques are called as agricultural practices. If I try to tell you, if we think from sowing, harvesting and selling the crops, if we consider step by step, our first activity is preparation of soil. As you all know, we can take an example here. Consider a small student. If we want that this particular student, he should have a bright future, he should be successful, then what do parents do for such students? What did your parents do for yourself? Of course, they put you in a good school so that you get proper education. They made it sure that your friends and your company is also very, very good, so that you do not fall into bad company, or maybe you follow particular activities which will take you away from your dedicated whatever future is there, or maybe which would be creating hindrances in your career. So suppose you imagine a small child or a student whom we are hoping that we will make him successful, or maybe we will make his future bright. Then definitely, what is the main prerequisite which is required? Of course, the first main thing is school. The second main thing would be, of course, family, friends, society, through which he would be daily given some of the values or sanskars which we are saying. So all these lay the foundation of building of character. So similarly, when you are planting a child in school, automatically you are building his personality and character. Similarly, in agriculture, when you are planting a seed, preparation of soil is nothing but building the fertility, building the growth, making it healthy, whatever seed is there, giving it all the needed nutrients, giving it all the necessary surrounding in which that particular seed is there, that will germinate and turn out to be a full grown crop which will give you grains. So for any particular child, if school or education is the character builder, then similarly for any of the plant, any of the seed, this preparation of soil, whatever soil is there, whatever organic content in the soil, whatever fertility of the soil, whatever nutrients in the soil, these are the basic elements or basic things which lay the foundation of the growth of the crop. I hope you understand. The second is the tillage. Tillage is nothing but an activity, a physical activity which is done to change the overall composition of the soil, and this composition is texture, structure, as well as overall materialistic composition of soil. Then comes sowing. Sowing is nothing but whatever seeds you are having, you are sowing them, you are putting them into the ground such that they are in a proper surrounding, proper soil material, in a way that they will germinate. And germinate is a process is nothing but in which a seed, from the seed, the nascent leaves comes out from the seeds and then they grow into a complete plant. Adding manure and fertilizer. Adding manure and fertilizer is nothing but, of course, these are supplements. During childhood, for all the students, maybe there were some students, or you are one of that students, maybe some of the parents or maybe your teachers would have said to you that if your height is not growing, please drink Complan with the milk. If you are not smart enough, you can drink Bonvita with the milk, right? So all these things for our proper growth, for our proper nutrition, whatever we are eating or drinking or consuming, that is our supplements. In similar fashion, for a proper growth of any plant, any crop, adding manure, fertilizer, it is nothing but, of course, increasing or giving the supplements so that there is a proper growth of plant. Then comes irrigation. When I talk about irrigation, irrigation is nothing but proper supply of water, okay? Whatever plant is there, whatever seeds are there, it needs three basic things for the growth. The first basic thing is, of course, your overall nutrients. Now, these nutrients include minerals as well as certain compounds which are essential for growth. Second is, of course, whatever medium which is required for its survival. This medium is nothing but your soil, which is the foundation of growth. And third is nothing but, of course, your air and water. Air and water. Because you may be thinking that only human beings drink water and they breathe air. But plants also, their roots also drink water as well as air. So I hope All these things you are understanding, and you are understanding like a story. Then comes cropping system. Cropping system in the sense there is a particular pattern in which particular crop or certain combination of crops are planted in a particular field. So cropping system is nothing but when multiple agricultural and farming activities, cropping system, the choices of the crops, the way in which the arrangement of the crops is done, how you have cropped those, okay, and then different choices coming together and making a overall all these activities or these particular patterns coming together, and they make your complete cropping system. Okay, so multiple cropping systems also they come together and they make your farming, agriculture or farming system complete. Then is weed management, unwanted plant growth in your field. Of course, you won't be wanting such a plant material in your field which will hinder the growth of your wanted crop. For example, you have planted rice, you have planted wheat, but at the same time you also see that during your cultivation of rice and wheat in the same field there is certain grass. Now that grass can take up or consume this unwanted grass can consume the nutrition which we have supplied for rice and wheat, right? Which is not okay. So that is why this weed management is nothing but we are trying to remove the unwanted material, unwanted plant growth such as grass, hyacinths and other extremely fast growing fodder and grass material from the field in a way that our desired crops like rice and wheat they grow in proper health. Then is harvesting. Harvesting is nothing but taking the grains out of crops. Post harvest storage is nothing but storing those grains and either selling them directly into the market or maybe even selling them to the other companies or other final furnished products such that they will now do the value addition and sell it as a final product. For example, suppose you cultivate wheat, then you can sell that wheat into the agricultural farm directly, or you can sell it to Ashirwad Atta Company, and that Ashirwad Atta Company will make the flour of that wheat and sell the packaged flour into the market. So either you can sell it as a primary raw material into the market or maybe as even the final value added product. And then it's specific practices which are carried out in the different agricultural systems. So here in these images you could see that, for example, you could see this is one type of preparation of soil. This is plowing and puddling which is been doing, a farmer is doing in rice field. Then this is your particular cropping pattern in which row plantation you could see, row cropping pattern you could see. This is a row cropping pattern. This, if you see, it is nothing but rice plantation water logging condition which is happening in this particular rice field. And this is your different types of irrigation like sprinkler irrigation and drip irrigation which we are doing in your agricultural practices. Now all the agricultural practices in line, you understood them. Now let's see them step by step in depth. Let's see them step by step in depth. Now the first agricultural practice which we are going to talk is about preparation of soil. You all would be knowing that, suppose imagine you are having 1 unit of land or 1 unit of field. It may be any unit, okay? So suppose you are having 1 unit of field and in that you are having soil. Of course, naturally you will not have that particular soil which is already having proper texture, okay, proper texture, proper structure and fine particulate matter, fine particle matter. So as we all know, random whatever soils are there in India, if you see from north to south, east to west, different types of soil are there. Red soil, yellow soil, black soil, okay, different types of stone, boulders, hard crumbs, clogged materials, as well as different dryness of the soil is also there. So every soil has different water or humidity also and water composition also. So therefore, to make the soil more of fertile in nature, to improve its texture, to improve its structure, to increase its fine particulate matter and add water in it, there we require preparation of soil. You could see this first stage in which what we can do is nothing but preparation, general preparation of soil. It is done by upturning the soil or loosening the soil. What is upturning the soil? It is nothing but when layers of soil are there, these layers of soils are intermixed with each other. This process of upturning the soil, that is called as upturning of the soil. So whatever the intermediate layers are there, these are broken down, these are mixed. So mixing of this layer, this is upturning of the soil. Along with that, there is also loosening of the soil. So hard boulder structures, hard pan, whatever the topsoil you could see, the first intermediate layer, that is called as hard pan, the upper rough, and it is completely fixed and connected with each other. So if you break that soil material and make it into a fine particulate matter, then that is called as loosening of soil, creating pores or porosity, increasing the overall finer matter, fine soil material into your soil, such that there is increase of pore or porosity into the soil, and this will add more air and water circulation in your soil. So this particular processes of upturning and loosening, this is the basic activity which is carried out during the preparation of soil. In such soil, after plantation of seed, you could see such nascent growth of small plants which occur in the field. Now, when this particular plants will grow, you will also see some unwanted growth of plants in your field, and this unwanted growth has to be removed for the proper growth of your desired crop. Okay, so for desired crop to be grown in its full capacity, health and good output, the unwanted grass materials have to be removed, and that is your weed management. Now overall, when we are discussing our preparation of soil, you also have to understand that in India also, where all of these different agricultural practices are carried out, India also had certain unique farming practices. So India is one of the largest unique agricultural and farming systems. If you see, India has Para and Utera, one type of relay cropping which happens in the West Bengal, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh region. India has terrace farming system which happens in tea plantation which occurs in Assam and Northeast region. Tripura shows one of the highest system of crop intensification system which happens for rice, where rice cultivation is not done in waterlogged condition but with optimized resources allocation. We also have jhum cultivation which happens in Northeast, which is a type of shifting cultivation. Then a traditional agricultural practice like Koraput traditional farming which happens in Odisha. Kuttanad below sea level farming system which happens in Kuttanad, Kerala, which is a rice cropping method in which whatever the plantation is there, whatever the fields are there, those are below sea level in the valleys. Then comes zero budget natural farming, a unique sustainable agricultural practice which has been started by Subhash Palekar, in Maharashtra. And then comes dryland farming practice which we carry in Rajasthan and Gujarat region. Okay, so overall you could see these are all the unique agricultural practices which you can use as examples also, and you should have this additional information for your AFO exam. Overall, now whenever we are doing these unique agricultural practices or this unique agricultural systems or farming systems, we will be needing this all basic agricultural practices. For all these different agricultural systems, these steps are nothing but standard operating procedures. These are standard and these have to be carried out. It may be dryland farming, it may be praira farming, it may be terrace farming, or it may be Koraput farming. Preparation of soil, tillage, sowing, addition of manure, irrigation, cropping system, weed management, all these agricultural practices are nothing but these are standard operating procedures and standard actions which has to be carried. The first stage which I told you, preparation of soil, it is the first step of laying the foundation of the field. turning and loosening turning or loosening of the soil, which is also called as upturning or loosening, which I already told you, which happens in field. This is also called as tilling or your plowing. Tilling is also called as tillage. Now you can consider tillage and plowing as two brothers, where tillage is the bigger brother and plowing is the younger brother. So this tillage and plowing, both of these activities are nothing but breaking down the soil, upturning the different layers of the soil and loosening the soil, where plowing is nothing but digging the soil in a proper pattern, and tillage is nothing but not just plowing of the soil or not just digging up the soil, but also breaking down of boulders, also upturning the soil and also loosening, and more importantly tillage is all about converting a particular soil into finer material. So overall, now do you understand the difference between tillage and your plowing? Both of these are nothing but preparation of soil only, but where plowing is more of digging activity which is done particularly for either plantation of the seeds or your, of course, sowing practices. Whereas tillage activity is not just for germination or sowing. Tillage activity is more about improving the soil health, soil fertility and preventing even the soil erosion. Okay. Then why it is important for preparation of soil? So the first thing is nothing but whenever you are going to put the seed, whenever you are going to sow the seed in your field, we all know the germination process in your field is nothing but the whatever the seed is there, the first leaf, the plumule which comes out of that particular seed. Okay, so germination from the seed, which happens either at the top surface or either at the bottom surface. These two types of germination are there, either hypogeal germination or either epigeal germination. So both of these germinations are there. These are nothing but initial growth of stem or root out of the seed. Now whatever this penetration of root is there or growth of root is there, which will happen into the soil, deep down into the layers of the soil, if the whatever soil is there, if that is prepared in a proper finer structure, if that soil has a proper structure, texture, then automatically more would be the penetration of roots into the deeper layers of the soil. More penetration of the roots into the deeper layer of the soil, more would be the absorption of nutrition and water for that particular crop. So therefore penetration of root is very, very important and dependent on preparation of soil. Then breathing of the roots, as I told you, roots also breathe. They breathe air and they also absorb the water. So therefore the soil should be having good proper texture as well as water availability. That means it is also very, very important that that particular dry soil is there. In that watering takes place, we add water in such a way that we make that dry soil into moist. In such a way, with proper porosity and water availability, the breathing of the roots becomes very, very easy. And growth of friendly organisms which occurs after loosening of the soil, we add manures, and when you add manures, the good bacteria, the good microorganisms are added into the soil, which again help the crops for their growth. The plant also will get proper nutrition. So nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, such nutrients can be easily absorbed. Micronutrients and macronutrients can be easily absorbed from the soil when such quality soil would be available for them. So this is nothing but all about preparation of soil. If you see different factors for preparation of land, so such factors which have to be considered for land preparation are: first is availability and quality of irrigation water. Second is field selection, where the field has to be selected. Then is mechanical actions which are being implemented during your tillage or plowing activity. then its chemical needs for pre-plant soil improvement. Overall, which macro and micronutrients are absent in the soil, and if yes, which have to be added. Then tools and equipments needed for the cultivation, which are the different tools, which are the different equipments, and which are the different mechanical machines which could be used for cultivation. Labor needs, irrigation design, finance requirement and time schedule, or these are ancillary things on which land preparation is dependent. Now let's come to the next stage of your preparation of soil, that is tillage. If I try to explain you what does tillage means, then one thing should be very, very clear. Tillage is nothing but physical manipulation of soil. So whenever if someone asks you what does tillage means, tillage is nothing but physical manipulation of soil. Physical manipulation is nothing but intermixing of layers. Intermixing of layers, upturning of the different layers of the soil, loosening of the soil. This all particular physical manipulation of the soil with either tools, implements, results in the good tilth for better germination and subsequent good growth of crops. The father of tillage, the name you should be reciting it is Jethro Tull, and it has been multiply asked in the different agricultural exams. Now, if tillage is the activity of physical manipulation of the soil, then tilth is nothing but a physical condition of soil resulting from the tillage. So tilth is nothing but a soil material which is having a proper texture of fine soil material, proper structure, good quality of organic material and nutrient, and more importantly also water availability in that soil. Okay, so overall tilth is nothing but a good quality of soil which we get as a result of the physical manipulation of soil, that is tillage. There are different types of tillage if you understand. The first two types of tillage, before classifying them you have to understand any soil preparation activity is done. First is preparatory cultivation, that is before germination. So you want to germinate a seed. Before germination of the seed, whatever cultivation whatever preparatory soil activity you do, that falls into the preparatory cultivation of tillage. And second is after the cultivation. After the cultivation is after sowing the seeds, after the germination of that particular crop, there are certain soil preparatory activities. So the first type is preparatory cultivation, which is generally done for sowing the seeds. Second is after sowing and germination of the seeds. The three types of tillage are done. The first is primary tillage, which is plowing. Second is secondary tillage, which is nothing but harrowing. So plowing is nothing but the digging up of soil, creating ditch. Okay, digging up or creating ditches into the soil. This is nothing but your primary tillage. Primary tillage is also used sometimes for the crop seed germination. So seed sowing also plowing activity is done. Secondary tillage is generally done for your after the germination or after the sowing of the crop. It is generally harrowing. So harrowing is an activity in which whatever soil material is there, that is removed from a particular place. Okay, so whatever soil particles are there from the layers of the soil, those are removed in harrowing, and unwanted plant material is also removed during the harrowing. So harrowing is that activity in which what you are removing certain parts of soil from the field. Okay, and seed preparation is nothing but in a proper arrangement after primary and secondary tillage, a proper arrangement of soil is done. This is done through a country plow in which a proper seed of multiple whatever seeds are there, those are planted. So for example, if I want to show you, okay, for example, if I want to show you a particular field, okay, so if this is my unit field, okay, unit piece of land, okay, suppose in row I am sowing my seeds. Suppose in my field I am sowing my seeds. So whatever these seeds I have sown and this row-like pattern has been created, that is nothing but your seed bed preparation. So this is my seed bed, and in this seed bed I am planting my seeds, or I am sowing my seeds. So this is nothing but seed bed preparation. So primary tillage, secondary tillage and seed bed preparation. Primary tillage is nothing but just digging up or plowing activity, which includes sowing of the seeds, whereas secondary tillage is nothing but more of nurturing the crops, making the soil, improving the texture and improving the total fine particulate matter in such a way that it improves the overall conditioning of the soil. So primary tillage is more for germination, secondary tillage is more for conditioning. Okay, now tillage is carried out by different agricultural equipments. First is plow. You all would have seen our important movie called as Mother India. So Mother India, very ancient movie, 1960s, 1970s movie. If you see that a wooden implement which is there, which has a pointed structure and a L-shaped structure, if you see, this is a metallic plow and this is a wooden plow. Now whatever these plows are there, these are used for upturning the soil and breaking the boulders, but more importantly they are used for creating the ditches, and in these ditches or dugouts the seeds are sown into it so that they will germinate. It is one of the ancient times practices. This tillage activity is generally done for sowing of seeds, adding fertilizers, removing weeds and even upturning the soil. Generally this primary activity is done only for cultivation purposes, not for conditioning purposes. It is the first activity in which the layers of the soil are broken down. The first, whatever dry soil is there, whatever quality of soil is there, it is broken down further into finer structure. Then is hoeing, or which is done by hoe. So hoe is nothing but it is a wooden implement which has such flat shape. So here you can call this as a hoe. Generally hoe is used for removing weeds and loosening of soil. Hoe is also used for the secondary tillage activities also. And then comes cultivator. Cultivator is nothing but it is a multi-pronged plow. It is a multi-pronged plow. You could see plow is having only one teeth. Here your cultivator is having multiple teeth. Now these cultivators are attached either to animal or either to tractors so as to cultivate the field. Overall, these were general types or classification of tillage. Now we come towards the main two types of tillage. First is primary tillage. Overall, primary tillage and secondary tillage are two important practices of tillage. Primary tillage is the first plowing operation after previous crops harvest. For example, suppose there is a farmer who is in Maharashtra. Okay, he started his cropping from June, July for your Kharif crop, in which he planted rice. Okay, he planted rice for almost 4 to 6 months, and now after harvesting of that rice, now this particular farmer is there, he is thinking of planting wheat plus potato. Now these are your Rabi crops. I hope I am clear. Okay, so Kharif crop and Rabi crop. So primary tillage is nothing but it is a first plowing operation after previous crops harvest. So suppose this particular farmer in the year of 2023, after doing Kharif cropping, now he harvested the crop. Harvested the crop in the sense whatever upper grains of the crops, whatever upper stem of the crop is there, that is cut down. That harvested crop is taken into separate field, and from there the grains are removed from the crop and those are sold into the market. But what about the remaining crop apical shoots which are into your field? These remaining shoots in your field after harvesting, this is called as stubble. Okay, so the primary tillage is nothing but the next field preparation or soil preparation activity which starts from removing of the stubble, then breaking down of upper soil material or hard pan, breaking down and preparation of the soil for your next cropping cycle, that is Rabi cropping cycle. So suppose this example, after Kharif crops harvesting, whatever stubble has remained, this removing the stubble, then breaking down of the soil, make plowing, tillage And the first tillage which would be carried out to make loosening this soil, for upturning the layers of the soil, for making it into finer granule structures, this would be called as your primary tillage. So first plowing operation after previous crops harvest is called as primary tillage. Implements are country plow, which I told you, Mother India's plow. Mold board plow, it is nothing but it is a type of equipment which also has teeth, but at the same time it can be also used to dig up particular soil and take particular soil from one location to other. Then is Bose plow and chisel plow. All these whatever plows are there, those are used for digging activity which are having multiple teeth, or these are multi-pronged. Then it's secondary tillage. As I told you, secondary tillage is a conditioning activity. So soil conditioning you are trying to improve. So lighter or fine operations performed on soil after primary tillage, where primary tillage is more of breaking the soil material, breaking the field, whereas secondary whatever your tillage is there, that is more of intermixing of layers, loosening the soil, then even making particular soil into finer particle matter. So this is carried out in your secondary tillage activity. Generally harrowing is done, in which harrowing what they do, they crush the clods. What is clods? Bigger soil particles. So clods, crumbs, these are broken down and made into finer soil particles, and this is nothing but harrowing process. So crushing the clods, uprooting the stubble, the unwanted remaining part after harvesting, removing that stubble, all these activities are carried out in your harrowing activity, and this particular overall activity could be considered as secondary tillage. Implements which are used are generally different types of harrows. Blade harrow uses blade for destruction of the overall bigger boulders of soil or bigger size particle matter. Disc harrow is for nothing but uprooting the stubble. Then tractor drawn cultivator is nothing but multiple activities and overall plowing activity which even includes secondary tillage. Then we come towards overall tillage classification. Now you all would be knowing traditional tillage has been classified into primary tillage and secondary tillage. But tillage activity has been also classified according to modern tillage. And what are those types? So first thing I'll tell you, according to conventional or traditional tillage, two types of tillage are there, primary and secondary tillage. Apart from that, special purpose tillage is also there. What is this special purpose tillage? For example, first type is subsoiling. So subsoiling is nothing but to break the hard pan, whatever the uppermost hard topsoil layer is there, breaking that down. And then whatever the next soft layer is there, upturning that layer of soil into topsoil. Okay. So this subsoiling is nothing but breaking the hard pan, the topsoil, and plowing of the beneath layer. So plowing or mixing of intermediate layer below the topsoil. Leveling is nothing but whatever land you are having, and if it is having irregular whatever surface. Okay. So if it is having irregular surface, then such irregular surface can be leveled up or created on the plane structure, and in this way this leveling is very, very useful in various terrains or topography regions. So wherever uneven topography is there, at that time leveling is used a lot. Then is blind tillage, in which thinning out or removal of weeds is done. So if you see, if multiple crops are grown, for example you would have seen wheat, rice and their fields. Okay. So various cereal crops fields, if you see wheat, rice, these are overpopulated. You could see that here, you could see overall density of the crops is higher. From that crops, if you are removing the unwanted grasses, the unwanted whatever crop growth is there, if you remove that, then such activity is called as thinning out, and that is nothing but blind tillage. Then clean tillage is nothing but top removal of all the vegetation from the field. So whatever unwanted plant is there, removal of that, as well as whatever crops or crop stubble is there, as well as that. Then it's contour tillage. So on the hill slopes, whatever tillage or your soil preparation activity is done on the contours, on the terraces, on these hill slopes, that is called as contour tillage, which is done, of course, to prevent the soil pollution and soil erosion. And wet tillage is nothing but creating the soil or preparing the soil in such a way that it increases the porosity and pores in the soil, which absorbs more and more water and overall increases the impervious layer in the soil. Then apart from these particular traditional tillage activities, the modern tillage activity has been classified also. So according to the modern tillage, there are three types of tillage activity. First is no tillage, second is zero tillage, and third is conservation tillage. No tillage is an activity in which complete ban on human intervention is there. So humans are not allowed even to touch the soil or even to break any type of soil material. So neither drilling, neither dugout, neither even breaking of hard pans and the topsoil. This happens in no tillage. Zero tillage is such an activity in which particular digging of the soil is done, or maybe even particular primary tillage activity is done only for the sowing of the seeds, nothing else. So plowing is done only for the sowing of the seeds, not for the conditioning or any other type of activity. This is zero tillage. And conservation tillage is nothing but, in spite of doing the plowing activity, in spite of doing this upturning and intermixing of layers, after that you do certain sustainable agricultural practices like mulching, that is covering the soil by the organic remains of the crops. That happens in the conservation tillage. So overall, all these three types are the different types of modern tillage which have been mentioned here. Okay. So overall, tillage is classified into traditional tillage activities and modern tillage activities. Traditional tillage activities, primary tillage, secondary tillage. And special purpose tillage is nothing but multiple tillage activities which are very, very unique. Subsoiling, leveling, blind tillage, clean tillage, contour tillage and wet tillage. And then comes modern tillage activity which include no tillage, zero tillage and conservation tillage. All these three tillages, that is modern tillage, is based on a particular theme or particular basic principle that the main objective is to prevent the soil erosion and improve the soil health. Okay. So therefore, these are the all types of tillage. Now we come towards the next soil preparation activity, that is plowing. When I talk about plowing, plowing is nothing but a puddling. Okay. So apart from plowing, apart from tillage, there is also a unique activity which is called as puddling. So suppose you take the consideration of cultivation of rice. We all know that rice is a waterlogged crops. Okay. So what do you mean by waterlogged? As we all know, rice requires more and more of water. It is a water intensive crop. What do you mean by water intensive crop? It drinks more and more water. So because of this, always whatever the field preparation in this field preparation for rice is done, that always is done in waterlogged condition. Waterlogged in the sense water filled condition, in which continuous plowing is done, intermixing of mud, intermixing of soil in water is done in such a way that muddy condition is achieved. This muddy condition is nothing but whatever soil is there, it is in semi-solid format. Okay. So this muddy like state creation, this is nothing but waterlogged condition for your rice cultivation. Okay. So waterlogged conditions can be used or maybe are more suitable for cultivation of rice. Now overall, plowing repeatedly in the standing water until the soil becomes soft and muddy, as I told you, that is your puddling. Now this puddling results into formation of puddles, and therefore rice is always grown in puddles. Okay. This why it is done, as we all know, India is a tropical country, and where the rainfall happens in Kharif season, at the same time evaporation also happens because of the tropical region, and therefore there is always loss of water because of the evaporation at the top and percolation at the bottom. Percolation, what is it? It is nothing but if this is your soil layer, then loss of water in the depths of soil, that is called as percolation of water. Now, to prevent the percolation of water into the soil, this water is excessively filled into your agricultural land or your field, and then repeatedly such standing water is intermixed with the soil such that muddy like situation is achieved, and therefore now whatever the percolation of the water is there, that would be reduced. For example, suppose if this is your field and in this, suppose this much water was there and it was percolating in your lower layers of the soil. What you did was you just increase the amount of water. So when you increase the level of the water, automatically what will happen is that whatever the soil is there beneath, the layers are there, their water absorption capacity will be, they would be saturated with the water, and as they would be saturated with water, therefore water will not be percolated more into the soil. So this is done by your puddling method. Generally the depth of water is 5 to 10 centimeters. It is practiced more importantly in rice field, and implements which are used are called as wetland plow or your wetland puddler. Remember it very, very carefully. You could see here, you could see the examples also here. Now let us talk about the next particular activity, that is leveling. So for whatever the land terrain is there, that land terrain of course could be irregular, could be uneven. So different topography is there in the country. There are hill regions, there are plateau regions, there are plains in India. You could see, you could go to the northeast states, you could go to the eastern Ghats, you could go to the western Ghats, you could go even to the Gangetic plains, you could go even to the plains and Deccan plateau. Multiple regions are having multiple topography. When multiple topography is there, automatically different terrain is there, and that is why to bring them, to level them, to make them plain, it is very essential that leveling is carried out. So in leveling, you are having certain plain flat boards through which you are leveling the land. So you could see here, for example, look at this particular land patch, how leveled it is. You could see here how boulder structures are there and uneven land is there, and here look at it, how it is created plain. So in this way you recognize how leveling is done. So planking or leveling board is run to level the field. Tractor drawn leveler is also used. Okay. Then we come towards sowing. Sowing is a particular activity in which seeds are sown into the ground. So suppose this is your field. So through plowing, such dugouts are made or such pockets are made, and in such pockets the seeds are planted. Okay. General these seeds are planted are according to two types of important methods. First is direct sowing, where you take the seeds and you directly sow them into the field. Second is transplantation, in which you first plant them into a particular vase, into a particular plastic bag in a medium, or into a particular vase. Okay. So if you plant them, you let them grow into individual plants, and after a certain growth of young plant, you again remove them from these particular structures and then plant them into the real fields. This particular activity of indirect plantation, that is your transplanting. Okay. Whenever we are planting a particular seed, the two things have to be taken care of, and that is quality of the seed, and two types of qualities are always checked. First is physical purity of the seed, and second is genetic purity of the seed. We all know seeds are used for your growth of crops. So rice is there, the same rice you can use for eating, consumption, where it is called as grain, and where such grains, when sowed into the soil, when put into the soil, they lead to new crop growth. Such grains are called as seeds. So there is a difference between seed and grains, which we are going to see in our further chapters of seed science. But Generally, seeds are nothing but grains which are used for growing the crops. Then, if a particular crop is not to be grown by seeds, there are other asexual methods of growth also. So what are these asexual growth methods? Such as vegetative propagation. For example, stem cutting. You all would be knowing the rose. If you cut the stem of the rose and if you take that stem and plant it into the soil or mud, automatically a new plant would be grown out of it. Then comes rooted slips. For example, whatever forage crops are there, you can even plant their roots, and from those roots, individual roots, one plant will grow. Then tubers, for example, potato. On potato you could see such buds grow, buds. These buds are there. You can remove these buds and plant them into the soil, and automatically from those buds you can see the plants are growing. Then you could see rhizomes which grow in turmeric. Similarly, turmeric also buds or whatever extended your growth is there, and from that new plant is grown. So two types of growth is there in crops. First, either through the seeds, and second, either through the vegetative propagation. Now, once we have good purity of physical purity of seeds and genetic purity of seeds, now these seeds would be of good quality and they can grow into your field. So whenever you are doing the sowing, we all know two types are there, direct sowing and transplanting. In direct sowing also, again there are two important types. One type is broadcasting and second is your line sowing. So broadcasting is nothing but, as we all know, radio broadcasting is there, which happens in all the direction. In similar way, broadcasting is nothing but when you are transplanting your seed, when you are sowing your seed in your sowing, okay, when you are sowing your seed in your any random direction. So that is your broadcasting. So whatever farmers you are seeing in the field, they are sowing the seeds in random direction, in random amount, not in uniform, but in random amount, in random direction. That is your broadcasting. Line sowing is nothing but, suppose you are having a particular field of land, okay, and this field of land, suppose you observe, line sowing is nothing but in a particular pattern, in a particular arrangement. It may be row, it may be column, it may be circle, it may be box, okay. In a particular arrangement, you are creating the pockets or dugouts, and in this you are planting your seeds. Now this sowing or this line sowing in a particular line, in a row, in a column, that also could be done in two types. First is drilling. So drilling is nothing but at the same time multiple drill holes are created, and in those multiple seeds are planted, okay, for their germination. Whereas dibbling is the second type, in which a single dugout or a single pocket is created. Dibbling is generally done with an instrument which is called as dibbler, okay. So this is a pointed device which is dibbler, through which you create small pockets in your field, one at a time. Whereas drilling, if you see, at a time multiple holes or pockets are created. So this is your dibbler. So in line sowing, if you see, you could see this is one type of the dibbler, okay. So here you could see pointed material, at one time it creates one pocket, and from that here the grains are, or whatever seeds are there, those are sowed. Similarly, here you could see this is your driller. So multiple drillers are there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these whatever drillers are there, those are responsible for sowing of seeds at the same time in multiple pockets. So this is your drilling, this is your dibbling, okay. And overall broadcasting, as I told you, it is nothing but sowing the seeds in multiple direction. So I hope that we are clear with the sowing of the seeds. Now comes the sowing as a general process. There is also optimum time of sowing in the field. Optimum time of sowing is nothing but taking the crops and sowing them into your field. So Kharif crop is generally done in June or July. Rabi crop is generally done in last week of October to first week of November, and summer crop is generally done in the first fortnight of January. So overall, for example, Kharif crop is done just before monsoon. Rabi crop is done as soon as the harvesting of Kharif crop is done, and as soon as the Rabi crop harvesting is done, the summer crop or JAIIB crop is planted. The depth of sowing generally is 3 to 4 times of diameter of seed. So suppose this is my seed. So whatever the diameter of seed is there, okay, so considering the diameter of the seed, the depth is almost 3 to 4 times of the diameter. The optimum sowing, whatever depth is there, that is 3 to 5 centimeter. For small seeds like sesame, finger millet, pearl millet, you would be knowing this pearl millet and all these are minor millets, okay, where their size is very, very small. You could see that their sowing depth is 3 to 5 centimeters. For very small seeds like tobacco, the overall depth is 1.5 to 2 centimeter. And for big, bold seeded crops, big seeded crops like castor, groundnut, cotton, maize, 6 to 7 centimeter of depth is there into your field. Then comes transplanting. As I told you, transplanting is a method. It is a process where seedlings are uprooted from nursery bed and transferred to the land. So I will show you here. So what they do is that suppose you are having a vase. In that a well nourished soil is there. In that you sow a seed. After a particular time, that particular seed is there that grows into a well grown small young or nascent staged crop. Then this particular nascent stage crop is called as seedling. After a particular time, you remove this seedling from this particular vase and you take it to your particular field and you transplant it onto the field. In such a way, you will transplant multiple seedlings which will grow into saplings. So this particular seedling transplantation which grows into saplings, that is called as your transplanting. Generally, rice is the crop in which transplanting is done majorly. So you would have visited nursery one or other time. So the plastic bags or maybe your plastic vases which are there, in that particular sapling is grown in such a young stage or maybe whatever nascent stage. And then as soon as they grow into saplings, these are removed and then again relocated or retransferred into the field. This particular process is transplanting. Then apart from that, we also have to consider whatever our seeds are there. Remember it very, very carefully. These seeds could be of bad quality also, right? Also, other than that, these seeds can be attacked by different diseases also. So therefore, seed treatment is also a point. So fungicidal treatment is nothing but where certain fungi attack on the seed and they destroy the seeds. To avoid such seed-borne or soil-borne diseases which are fungal in nature, Kaptan, Thiram, these are the fungicides used for seeds. Pesticides treatment. Apart from that, on various seeds and crops also various pests or insects also attacked. So malathion, which controls the scale of insects, and quinalphos, which controls the increase and attack of the insects, both are the pesticides. Hot water treatment is also there, which generally takes place in sugarcane. Various diseases in sugarcane like red rot and smut disease is there, with which sugarcane generally is infested. At that time, hot water like up to 52 degrees Celsius is used for 30 minutes for controlling such diseases. And then is breaking up of dormancy. Dormancy is nothing but it is a temporary stage of suspension of growth in seeds, plants, and even in animals. For example, in animals, what is hibernation? So hibernation is nothing but also temporary suspension of growth and all the physical and metabolic activities. In similar way, in seeds, dormancy is also temporary suspension of growth and all the physical biochemical processes in that particular seed. So for breaking such dormancy happens because of multiple factors like external climate, internal hormones. Now against this all the factors, if you want to break the dormancy so that seeds will germinate, because dormancy reduces the germination. For example, if a seed is going to germinate now, because of dormancy, it may germinate, or after 6 months or even 1 year, or maybe even it may not germinate. So break this dormancy, various compounds are there like gibberellic acid, cytokinins, ethylene, 500 ppm per 12 hours. So in this way, these are all your seed treatment which happen in your overall agricultural practices. Apart from that, acid treatment, so acids like sulfuric acid, nitric acid, those are also used for different seeds so as to either reduce the thickness of their coat, the hardness of the seed, as well as for removing their overall dormancy. So seeds do not cling to each other when such acids are used. Then its scarification, it is nothing but whatever the envelope, hard envelope of the seed is there, external envelope or coating is there, converting that into a soft material. So rubbing against the hard surface to soften the hard seed coat, that generally happens in castor. Removing the glooms covering the seed, soaking in water, splitting the seeds into locules, and compound bulbs into individual close. So whatever these different types of seeds are there, the scarification is nothing but when the external envelope, the external seed coating, it whatever is hard in material, that is converted into a softer external coat. Okay. Then it's addition of manures. We all know manures as well as fertilizers. What are these? These are the substances which are added in the soil in form of nutrients. Generally, manures and fertilizers are of two distinction, and these are differentiated as follows. Manures are generally natural substances produced by decomposition of residue of plants and animals. For example, cow dung. For example, whatever urine of animals is there. All such whatever excreta and waste material is there from the animals and plants, remains of plants which are organic or natural in nature, from that if you create a natural substance which if provides the nutrition to the crop, that is called as manure. So if you see, it adds the organic content into the soil, that is humus to the soil, but such organic manures are having less nutrient component in them. So they would have less nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium but high humus. Whereas fertilizers, if I am talking about, fertilizers are man-made organic, not inorganic, inorganic. So fertilizers are man-made inorganic salts prepared in factories. Okay. So these are generally to provide micro and macronutrients which are essential for the crop. So these are high in nutrient components but less in humus because these are not prepared from the organic source. Both of these manures and fertilizers are supplements such that those crops will absorb this and grow in proper health and also show higher productivity and higher yield. Then comes intercultivation. We will talk about intercultivation. This is our last point, and then tomorrow we will discuss different types of intercultivation and different ways in which intercultivation is done. Okay. So cultivation practices which are taken up after the sowing of the crop. Now whatever activities we saw, what were they? Preparation of soil, tillage, plowing, right? In tillage, different types, primary, secondary, okay, modern tillage, no tillage, zero tillage, conservation tillage, right? After that what did we see? Of course, you are puddling, right? So different types of your plowing activities. We saw puddling. Then we saw seeds, right? Of course, we are going to sow the seeds. We saw different types of sowing, broadcasting, drilling, dibbling, right? After the sowing, seed treatment, right? After the seed treatment, addition of manure and fertilizers. And now, after sowing the seed, now the seed will germinate. So any of the cultivation practices which are taken up or which are done after sowing of crop, after the germination of crop is nothing but seeds. Out of the seeds, first stem or root comes out of the seed and grows as an individual crop. Okay. So this all the cultivation activities done after sowing of crop, it is called as intercultivation. It is otherwise called as after operation also. So the first activities which are considered into intercultivation are thinning and gap filling. So remember now very, very carefully. Suppose you are having 1 unit piece of land, okay? So suppose you are having 10 hectares of land. You just started your agricultural activity in this year. So suppose initially you planted 100 crops, okay, 100 maize crops. If you planted 100 maize crops and if you got a total output of how much? 50 tons. Suppose you got an output of 50 tons. So as in this 1 year you planted 100 crops and you got 50 tons of your maize or corn grain, okay. Now you started to increase your number of crops. From 100 you increased to 200. Your total output also increased. From 50 it became 60, 70, 80, okay. Then from 200 you made it 300. Then from 300 you made it 400. And now your total cropping production is 150 tons, okay. Now if you increase more number of crops, your land is limited, it is only 10 hectare, right? So suppose now you increase it beyond 400, beyond 500. What happens is that overall isolation distance, what is isolation distance? If 2 crops are there, the distance between 2 individual crops, that is called as isolation distance. Now always remember, if isolation distance neither should be wide or neither should be narrow, okay. If the isolation distance is very, very less, both the crops would be fighting for the nutrients. And if isolation distance is very, very large or it is very, very far away, it means that lesser number of crops are grown in your field. Therefore, your output would be less. So therefore, you will realize that if when you will go on increasing your number of crops, automatically these number of crops which have been planted in your field, their total output will be reduced. So therefore, when you increase the number of crops from 300 and 400 to maybe 500 or 600, you will see that your output doesn't increase from 120 to 150. Rather, it decreases to 80 or 90. Why this happens is because all these overpopulation of crops, the increase in density of number of crops in your field, they compete with each other and overall the productivity goes down. So therefore, whenever you are planting on an unit of land, unit piece of land or 10 hectares of land, there would be an optimum number of crops which is grown into that field, okay. Now controlling the population of the plants or crops in the field, that is called your thinning or gap filling. So for example, to maintain the optimum plant population in the field, both of these activities of thinning and gap filling are carried out. Thinning is nothing but removal of excessive plants, leaving healthy seedlings. So for example, you could see this is before and after thinning, whatever this unwanted, unhealthy plants were there, those were removed, and now we are having a good quality uniform crops, okay. Then gap filling is nothing but suppose there is a situation, for example, this is my before crops and these are my after crops. So before crops are nothing but, suppose if there is a field in which there are certain vacant areas in the sense there are no crops planted here. So gap filling is nothing but gaps are filled by sowing of seeds or transplanting of seeds in the gap where early sown seed had not germinated. So wherever the seeds are not germinated, wherever the seeds fail to germinate, wherever you planted the seed but they did not grow, at that location you try to plant the seed. In this way, you control the overall plant population by addition of the seedlings and by removal of your plants. So thinning is removal of plants, gap filling is addition of plants. So with this we will end our session. Thank you very much and we will see you next time. We'll tomorrow come with the next part of our lecture. Thank you very much. Till then.